Today I'm speaking with Greg, who is the CISO at ScoutBee. Now, Greg and I have been connected on LinkedIn for some time, but we've never actually spoken before. And then I saw him speaking at the cyber event in Manchester. And one of the things he brought up really piqued my interest because it was something that I've been discussing a lot with and seen as an open discussion within the cyber world over the last year or so. And it was the question of talent and where we find it and what we do with it, and is there a shortage and why? And I think he just had some really interesting perspectives on how to get to where you want to be when it comes to growing a team in cyber. So I had a discussion with Greg, we went through that, and he kindly agreed to record something with me today, which I hope to share with everybody to give some insights and ideas. But before we go any further, I'll allow Greg to introduce himself, tell us more about him, his role at ScoutBee, who ScoutBee are as well. But yeah, over to you.
So I'm Greg Gaast, CISO at ScoutBee. I've been doing security, albeit a bit in my own way, for about 25 years, from the teenage hacker to techie to consultant to manager, which I really dislike, to now more leadership role. The middle management thing in IT is a bit weird, but maybe get into that later. And I'm now CISO for ScoutBee GmbH, which is a Berlin-based startup, now scale-up. We help some very, very big household names manufacturing fast-moving consumer goods, Airbus, Bosch, Philips, Unilever. That's kind of our customer base, General Electric. We help them find suppliers, but also increase their supplier diversity, lower their environmental impact, greener options, more resilient options. We speed up the time it takes for them to find suppliers. We help them manage their existing suppliers. Some of these companies will have 200,000 suppliers, no go looking for new ones, not knowing that their existing supply chain can do what they need. And we help them kind of streamline that process. And we're basically a big data AI company that does scrapes the world for supplier and supply chain data, a bit like Google, and make something of value out of all that data, and we pass it on to our customers.
So when you arrived there with ScoutBee, had there been a security function in place before, or a CISO? And what's the big benefit to a business like that of having that in place?
So there hadn't before. So when I joined I first started as actually a consultant, contractor, and I was basically contacted by the then director of engineering, and he'd been there for a couple of months, and he basically reached out to me, so because I just gotten out of work, and he reached out to me because someone gave him my name, someone to talk to, and it was just kind of like a pick my brain type of conversation, which I get every week or so. And he was telling me how he joined and how they didn't, they didn't really have any formal security in place, and he was kind of wondering how to go about it, this and that. And I just kind of gave him, this is how I'd structure it. Look at the business. What do you do? What are your operations? Tailor it to that. Build a program based on that. Blah blah blah. And the next question was like, well, what's your availability and what's your rate and when can you start? I was like, oh. And then I started as a consultant for a while, and then they got a new co-CEO, and I had one 25-minute conversation with him, and he had to get off the call, and he just went, I'm sorry to do this so quickly. I thought he was letting me go, but then he was like, would you like to be our CISO? I was like, oh, okay. So we didn't have too much there before. And I think I later asked my boss, Mikhail, why he hired me. And the answer he gave me was, doesn't matter what the position is, I only hire people that have some business savvy, some business understanding. And I think that's why, obviously, it's a kind of business enabler in the traditional sense of you need the security, you need the processes, you need the the ISO certification, SOC 2 certification, automotive, TISAX certifications, that kind of stuff. But for me, I wanted it to be a lot more about, let's be a quality function. Like, you're a startup, we had some maturity issues, let's raise the maturity, let's raise the how we create stuff, how we build applications, how we build infrastructure, how we communicate, down to, you know, how do we do the sales process? And, you know, example, we overpromise, and that puts extra strain on engineering, which results in quality issues, like really holistic. But also, how can we use security as a differentiator? Like, let's go all in and talk about, you know, I have a commercial officer on the security team who does contractual compliance, but also liaises with marketing, liaises with sales, creates material, market studies. You know, when someone sends a security questionnaire and they're in aviation, we've done market research on the aviation sector, and these are your cyber risks, and these are your supply chain risks, and this is why we do this and how we've addressed that. And I'm like, oh, and then they go ask our competitors what they do, and our competitors are like, and then they come back to us having realized, oh, we're going to give you a lot of our intellectual property. We hadn't thought about this, so it's very good that you're investing in your security.
Yeah.
I always give the analogy of, you know, your precious classic car that's, you know, your pride and joy. You take it to a garage and they take it in the back, and you get it back 5 hours later, and you get an invoice saying they changed the oil and this and that, but you don't know. And that's how most security questionnaires work. Whereas we like to be the shop where, you know, glass window, you can see people working, they're taking care, clean uniforms. If you have a question, you can walk in, you can watch us work, so that you know that we care about what you care about, and we know you're going to keep coming back to us. And realistically, we put a lot of work in this. We'll charge, you know, if a garage like that charges you an extra 10%, you'll pay it, because you realize that that there is value there, that it's worth that investment, and that's kind of a way of creating some revenue out of security as well.
I think that could almost be, I think that's another conversation we should have on another day as well, because another thing that we constantly see at the moment is, what role does security play in boardroom discussions? Where does it come in from a commercial point of view, and how much more impact can it have, rather than just from a framework or legislation point of view? It's not just about safety, it can actually help to lead the business as well.
Yeah, this was actually my last talk in Edinburgh. Was, you know, like, let's stop having everything be risk led, and let's have security be business led, because you can actually, if you do it, the caveat here is that you have to actually have good security. You can't do all the tick boxes, which, let's be honest, a lot of companies do. A lot of companies implement a lot of security tech, but they don't have real business integration, so they don't actually know what's going on. So you're definitely going to miss stuff. So having that, you know, being business driven means you get involved in the business. So A, it gives you more visibility, so you're actually better able to protect it. B, you're actually creating revenue. Or I think security needs to be very holistic, so you spot areas where you could improve synergies, or you could reduce waste, or this, that. So you end up cutting costs, increasing productivity, and even, you know, adding value to products, and increasing the top line as well as the bottom line. If you do that, you are no longer the security IT geeks in the basement that no one in management wants to talk to. Now you're at leadership level, you're appreciated, and that traction will then allow you to actually secure the organization much better than if you don't have it.
Yeah.
Treat it as a pure kind of IT function, it doesn't work. It's like, analogy I use for that is, you know, if your 13-year-old son or daughter wants to go to the festival and you just say no, well, they're just going to go anyway. Whereas if you actually invest in a relationship with them and do, you know, feed their hobbies and their interests and grow with them, and you're there all along, then they'll want to go to the festival with you. So you go and you have a fun time at the festival, and you're there to protect them the whole time, and they don't even realize that you're protecting them.
Yeah.
So I don't even talk about security most of the time. I talk about, like, well, how can we increase agility? How can we increase quality? How can we increase this? How can we streamline this process? How can we cut some costs there? And that's what keeps me involved in parts of the business, or I like to think it does. And that then allows me to know a lot more, which then my team in the background is like, hey guys, while I was doing this and this, I noticed this in the sales process, or I noticed this in engineering, I noticed that and that. Let's fix that. But the business doesn't even know that I'm doing those things half the time. It's just like, try to contribute to the business. It gives me insights. I feed it to my team. They take care of it in the background.
I
But if
suppose
I
it's
wasn't
like,
involved in the business, I would never even known about those issues in the first place.
Well, I was going to say, it's like any good solutions focused organization, any company that's out there looking to provide a solution, you lead with the benefits first, and not so much the features. Is what is the benefit of our service, and what was the benefit of our solution. And if the benefit is that you cut out X amount of time and risk in identifying a supplier, and it's because the security function contributes to that, then it's a major selling point, and should work its way up the chain in that discussion.
Yeah. Even simple things like, like a year ago, it took us, because these are, our clients are like $100+ billion market capital companies, 100 billion with a B. So that, security questionnaires and stuff can be absolutely exhaustive. And it took us a month, 3 to 4 weeks for some of them a year ago. Now it's like 48 hours, 24 hours. Because we've looked at what they want, we know the questions they ask, we anticipate, we build a body of knowledge. We've gone, I have a contractual compliance person on my team, and we actually go through what companies want. We do research, we anticipate the needs, so that, we want to know all these things, and we're like, here's a fancy 20-page document that explains absolutely everything we do, why we do it, because we've done this research about your sector, and look, we've put your logo on every page. And that, like, it looks professional, like, wow, these guys are really on the ball, and it keeps that momentum, like, regardless of it being a security thing and passing the security test, it keeps the momentum in the sale, and it helps, that might be, that 2-3 week security stall might just be enough to kill that momentum in the deal and make it more difficult to negotiate or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's just another way of helping the business along.
And then, of course, another factor in keeping that momentum is finding the people to help to do it. So I think, as I mentioned at the start, that at the future cybersecurity event, which I'm reading so I can remember the exact name of it, you mentioned that the challenge of building at pace a fully functional and operational team. And that, in comparison to the fact that we consistently see that there's a shortage or perceived shortage in talent in the space. So a couple of things that I wondered if you have the same opinion of that, or it's changed since joining ScoutBee, but also if it is going wrong in the industry, what ways have you found to change that, or how have you approached the challenge in a different kind of way? Maybe it's evolved just because of the business that you're in, or it was a mentality you had already, but how have you overcome the challenge?
I think the most important thing is, I don't really think there's a shortage. I think the important thing is to focus on what you need to do, for your particular situation, your organization, your company, as opposed to doing security. Oh, I need SOC analysts. I need this. I need that. No, define what it is you actually need to do. And I think this is, I've noticed a lot of security job descriptions. What they often don't have is a job description. It's, we want this title, this many years of experience, these certifications, blah, 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 blah. I was like, but you've not described what this person is supposed to do and why. And for me, it's much more about that. First of all, this is the ensemble of everything I need to do. How, like, I need these skills. I don't care if one person has 5 and the other one has 3, or one person has 4 and the other one has 7, or whatever. The important thing is that I have like, everyone put together has the skills that we need, with obviously some reasonable overlap to cover and to be replaceable eventually. But so that's one. So it gives you that flexibility, and just look at, so describe the job, I find really helps in finding the right people, because most people don't do that. It's just like a SOC analyst. Okay, but what am I actually going to be doing? I mean, okay, that's maybe a bit of a cookie cutter role, but there's lots of other ones where, a lot of the roles that I have, I made up. It's like, I need someone to check our contractual backlog to see what our requirements are. And I also want to build security as part of a company brand. And I need, like, a lot of, so I ended up hiring like a former salesperson who understands contract, understands marketing, used to be sales in IT and security, so actually has some understanding of security, great to advise for, like, what solutions we adopt. So it's like very unusual role. I have a head of program and quality manager, because we want to make it a quality function, and I need someone to project manage all the different initiatives that we have. Human factors are very important. So everything like from process engineering, from I want to talk to every single part of the business, see how people work, what information do they deal with, which systems do they interact with, how is that done, what are the risks in them doing that, and then do process engineering to suss that out, and also to manage everything with HR. So I just kind of create roles for whatever I need, and then I find the people that can do them. And that's quite that's not been difficult to find, to be honest. I think it helps to have an online presence. I have pretty decent LinkedIn presence, but I feel like if you're in a leadership role, you should kind of have that. You should invest that.
Yeah.
So that helps. Stop doing cookie cutter. Everyone's looking for the same things, and it's usually not the best thing for you. So I've like this running analogy of that describes the security space as this car factory, but it builds these perfect, beautiful cars, and then it pushes them into the parking lot to be sold, but from the third floor. And then, well, every 30 seconds there's another car crashing down, and we built all these workshops, and then we take them over there, and then we assess the damage and what parts are needed, and what's the order in which you disassemble it, and how do you put it back together, and which tools do you need, and how do we prioritize the different bits of damage, and what's acceptable, and how do we not step all over each other, and what are the procedures to do it, and which tools do we need, and which quality framework should we live to, and what auditors do we bring in, and which vendors are going to sell us better tools so we can work faster, blah, blah, blah. And that's the security industry. And then you have the person that has no security experience, nobody wants to hire, and they're standing there on the street asking the question, why does the assembly line end on the third floor? Which is a really good question. And that person's like, well, I don't know anything about this, but I'm going to go inside and talk to the guys and see if they can't make the cars come out on the ground floor. That position doesn't exist in information security because we haven't standardized it, which is one more reason why there's a big push to standardize how we do InfoSec. And it's a really bad idea because the way we're doing it now isn't very good. And you hire people like that, and it's like you just have the best ideas that no one, who, by the way, demand 3 times your salary, are coming up with, just because you haven't been like indoctrinated by the security industry. So kind of that willingness to accept that, to do things a little bit more differently, to shift things away from all this security tooling, and like, let's build things properly. It makes much more sense. Let's increase the quality. Let's get rid of the defects from early on. And these are actually things that are much more relatable to other departments, to executives. They can understand that a lot more than your AI detect and respond, whatever platform. So yeah, once you start looking at things a little bit differently, it's really not too difficult to find people. And I think the other thing, which we were just talking about earlier, is we talk about transferable skills now, and like we treat people, they've not worked in cyber, but they've done other stuff here, which some of those skills transfer over. And I'm like, you've got that backwards. The cyber stuff, you can teach someone very easily. The engagement skills, influencing skills, organizational skills that you get from being a teacher, a policeman, ex-military, a former business owner, just to name some of the people in my team, those skills that they have are far more valuable than the pure techie cyber skills. They're able to communicate, they're able to engage, they're able to market, they're able to give us so much more traction within the organization because of those soft skills and transferable skills. They're far more valuable than the cyber skills. So we've got this totally backwards. So we really need to embrace those, because a lot of those skills are absolutely essential. And within cyber, we don't develop those. We don't have them. So it's not, they're not substitutes. They're the ones you want.
All those soft skills that you mentioned as well speak to something that's really important, which is culture. Because you can have all the frameworks, and you can have all the workshops, and you can have all of the teachings that you like, but if the message doesn't get through to, effectively, it's the whole business that needs to be responsible for cyber once it's been put in place. You need to have the cultural message, and perhaps the skills that you're looking for are people who are more capable of or adaptable to communicating that message.
they're better communicators. And I think that's what gives you, we all complain about, oh, we don't have the budget, or I can't do it because I report to the head of IT or the CIO or this or that. It's like, well, that's because of communication. And I mentioned this earlier, and I've mentioned this a few times. Like I was at an event a couple of years ago, and they asked, it was all like CFO, COO, CEOs, board level, C-level executives. And they asked them, why do you fund your cybersecurity functions? The number one answer was to make them go away. Like, that's how poor we are at communicating, that the number one reason we get funding is because we're annoying. So if you get people who actually, understand, are better communicators, have some more rounded business sense, don't live in their computer, or a bit more worldly, that gives you lots of traction. And then you start relating to executives. And I noticed this first, 4 or 5 years ago, and I noticed the number of C-levels who were, I'd have a conversation with them, and they're like, "Oh, this is the first time that someone's made security make sense to me," or like, "Oh, you're the first security person that I've actually enjoyed having a conversation with." It's like, well, I'll take that as a compliment, but that's a pretty damning indictment of how bad the rest of the industry is at communicating, and I'm far from perfect myself. So
Yeah, like touches on something else I was going to bring up, which is this idea of, and we talk about this a lot with the clients we work with, about your, your value proposition to the people you bring into the business, and your brand and your story, and as a company, as overall, not just looking at cyber, but your overall brand and message, and what is the thread that runs through the company that makes somebody want to come and join you and work for you, and how important it is to kind of bring that story to life. And I guess a lot of the things that you mentioned here are really important in bringing the cyber security function to life. And not just in terms of anybody who is in cybersecurity looking for a new job or aspires to be within that, but also just the wider appreciation and understanding of what this team of people are doing within your business, for your business. Getting that story out there is really important.
yeah, because I don't want any of my people to be, the people in the basement or in the SOC, whatever. Like, everyone needs to get out there and talk to people, and I want people to know that they're approachable. And we it's like top 3 priorities is business success, organizational health, then security.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, the first 2 are more important to the business than security is, and without them, A, you're not going to be able to implement security properly. B, you're not going to have the support and traction to do it. So it's a prerequisite, and it drives tremendous business value. Like, I want to be, I had some new starters today, and I feel like companies sometimes like coddle new starters, like, hey, everything's great, this and that. And I was like, you should know, we had like a full turnover of the management team. A lot of people, we've maybe not been the best at communicating this lower down in the organization yet. Like, I think the management team is now, leadership team and management team, absolutely top notch. In the past, we've not been the best at communicating stuff down to management. If you hear dissenting voices, this may be why. Share this message. You guys have fresh eyes. If you see anything that you don't like about the company, tell us. Just that I really like radical candor with people, and tell them, like, everything isn't perfect, but like, please help us improve it if you can. And that makes people feel like, oh, I can actually drive change here. They feel engaged. It really opens up, they're not expecting, of all the departments, they're not expecting the security team and the head of security, CISO, whatever, to be the one sharing this news for them. They're expecting them to. So that immediately gives you like, oh, our security function here is a bit different. Like, they really care about the people. They really care about the business. They're really honest about things. We feel safe opening up to them. Same thing. It's like, if you make a mistake, yeah, don't be like, oh crap, I made a mistake, I'm not going to tell anyone. It's like, please come tell us, because you are helping us prevent 20 other people from making the same mistake. That, like, you admitting to that mistake would be greatly appreciated, because it means, why'd you make that mistake? What was it in the process that wasn't clear? How can we improve? What should we warn others about?
Yeah.
So it's a totally different kind of approach to how security is traditionally seen. I think if you're going to do security well, like, you have to be involved everywhere, and that allows you to see a lot of things, to influence a lot of things, Not just for security, but just for wanting the best outcome for the business and all the people involved in it.
Yeah, I suppose it's an evolving process, isn't it? It has to begin with some sort of framework or structure and has to kind of be put out there. But then that grows with the industry, with the organization, doesn't it? And you'll understand, I suppose, as much from the people living this day by day and its effectuality and functionality or whatever it might be. And as you say, flagging up incidents when they happen and mistakes when they happen. It evolves. So from the point at which you and your team do what you need to do, it's a continued conversation then, isn't it? It's an enabler, not,
Yeah.
a distraction.
So a huge part of I've built this kind of framework, and it's everything from executive approval to legal to continuous improvement, managing the framework itself, and HR integration, disciplinary process, but then also our own products, our SaaS solutions, our internal IT, our human factors, the commercial side of things, SecOps, but a huge chunk of it is like defining how processes in other parts of the business should work. And so we just create these placeholders and we start learning about the business and documenting and like, well, how can we do some process engineering so that this works better? And not always just from a security standpoint. Like if we why are we using this platform here and this platform there? We could consolidate. We spent all this money integrating these two different things, but instead we could use this Salesforce plugin and that would do what they need and save us money and this and that. So just by virtue of being security and needing to see everything, we can bridge a lot of those gaps. And historically, that's what I see, especially in bigger organizations where you've got silos that don't talk to each other at all. And security shouldn't be another silo. You should be spreading across that and helping the business as much as you want. And culture is key. It's that culture of open communication, honesty, emotional safety, like willing to accept criticism, to growth, knowing that it won't be taken negatively against you, and the mission, what you're trying to achieve as a company, is really just an excuse to bring everyone together. However, by bringing everyone together, it has fantastic benefits to that business. So it's kind of cycle that goes on, and I try to formalize it in a framework which is continuously developing and maturing. Yeah.
And coming back to a point you made before about the brand of cyber, or the brand of the person who leads it, and the visibility. I think that is maybe something which could be looked at as a different way of doing things, as well as not just having people at the forefront internally of the business as this is our face of cyber and what have you, but externally as well to the marketplace. Make that point of this person leads our cyber and this is what they do, and give them the platform to communicate with the market as well.
You mean from a recruitment standpoint?
Yeah, from the recruitment as much as anything
it's
else.
Funny because I had a call with my team earlier, and one of them said, someone asked me what it was like working for you, if it was all hype or if it was actually good, and he said, I told him it was chaos. So I'm not sure how I managed to attract the team that I did, but I'm glad. I'm glad it. But I mean, you're right, because I did. I hired 6 people, like you said. I started in September, and most of the team started in October. Hired 6 people in no time at all. One had like a month's notice, so he started a month later. One had 3 months notice, but he was put on gardening leave. He actually worked for free for 3 months because he was still collecting salary from his other place, just because he wanted to be part of the team. So it's you can definitely attract people, and it was. I think I did 2 LinkedIn posts for 6 jobs. I found it created enough excitement and talking of people like, oh, by the way, if you do have an engineering role, I will also be, I didn't even have to advertise the other roles. I never went through HR or recruiter, just my personal LinkedIn. And from the 2 posts, it brought out enough people and enough conversation that other people came, for other roles that I hadn't listed yet, came recommended. And I was like, found them before I could even post those roles specifically. So I think the market is, candidate wise, it's quite rich, to be honest. There's lots of people out there.
Just maybe changing the way you look at it slightly.
Yeah, it's the approach. I think it's the approach. I think I think your manager is very important. Yeah, I'd rather work for have a good boss in a bad company than work in a good company with a bad boss. Because it can be a terrible company. They're the ones that will shield you from the bad stuff. So I think that's quite important. That having a personal brand, and just enjoy what you do and listening to people and caring about people. I think that does a lot, and I think we're quite bad at that in IT and security, especially.
It's probably a nice place for us to finish on as well, which is what I wanted to ask you. And so you've been in security now for over 20 years, is it?
Yes.
Something like that?
Getting quite old.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe a good is it 20? Gosh, maybe a good place to finish would be to allow you to tell people why cyber is a great career area to pursue. Why would you? Why you should get into it, where it can take them, and why is it so fulfilling? What has it meant to you over the last and beyond the next 20 years as well?
Well, I was thinking of getting out, to be honest. I think you have to like a challenge. I think there's a lot of like big promises of money and stuff in cyber, but it's the way we're approaching it now is, everyone wants to be a pen tester or a SOC analyst or I don't think those roles are particularly fulfilling unless you're the right person for it. Like if you're super geeky and you love nothing but sitting in the basement all night staring at the screen. So no, I don't think it's that fulfilling, to be honest, the way it is now. But we need to change it, and I think I think it's really fulfilling for the people who are given a chance to change it. Because I've got a bunch of people who really believe in what they're doing. So it's about finding the right kind of place to land. I would say generic cyber, no, but we need more leadership. We need more. There's a lot of great people trying to transition into this industry, and there's that I believe could genuinely bring fantastic change, fantastic value. There's so much gatekeeping and there's so much discrimination against them because they're not pure cyber people. They don't have 10 years experience. What they don't have is 10 years of brainwashing and an approach that doesn't work. So we need a whole lot less gatekeeping. And I invite anyone who especially like has leadership or management potential, please come save us. So yeah, it's maybe not the best pitch to get people, but there's enough people like telling people to go into to cyber because you'll make 6 figures right away and all this. But I definitely want to invite. You have to fight to get to a place where you can make it work, but we need different people. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Greg. It's been a pleasure. And I think if you have the time again in the future, I'd definitely like to pick up on that theme of looking at the business functionality and the business benefits of cyber as well. But
yeah.
For today, thank you.
Be happy. Cheers.